matter previously covered. You could come up with this randomly reading reviews on Yellow Pages, I suppose. You're looking for a restaurant in the area, and this comes up in the list because it's close by, maybe, or because, but no, it's because he needs certain phrases for his tapes, and he thought maybe if he sent it back the long way around. I mean, that's one possible. It seems obvious that that's probably, given the nature of these, the simpleton nature of these creatures, and their agenda, what they would want and what they would be looking for. I mean, it pretty much rules out other possibilities. Now, of course, the other possibilities that are there, you can speculate on end, but Occam's razor, the obvious thing, and it's the most obvious, and I'm not new. This is not a new tactic. I said I've had the discipline for 40 years, and when you're practicing the discipline, of course, you would notice things that you wouldn't maybe notice otherwise. That's one thing I told Brad. I said, look, if you tune out the words and mutterings, you will notice other things, because then your brain is no longer occupied by their word salad nonsense, their schoolyard adolescent profitless nonsense. You would be looking at other things more closely, and then you would notice things that otherwise would have slipped by you. And that is very real, also a very accurate and a truthful, objective description of what takes place. It shouldn't be discounted. Human nature, what you know how the brain works, would tell you that that's the case. It's obvious. As a matter of fact, that now, as having pointed it out, it should seem obvious to you that if you have a thoughtful discipline, it can create results, and such as noticing things that otherwise might slip by. And so, like they say, hey, Brad, while you're tangled up with the mutterings of that idiot, you look at all that you're missing out on, and I'd point out a few things. Biological cues, emotional pressure, all these things that would telegraph the earnestness, the yearning, the strain and stress, and all of this creature under observation. And you would notice all these things that you're missing out on, and then you could take and throw that back at them and expose them again. All these, rip their clothes off, show them up, hold them up naked to be laughed at. And so you don't want to miss out on any of those things that you could point out to your advantage and their disadvantage. And so there's a great advantage in the discipline that should not be discounted. You're given the way the human, that you should know how the human brain works, that if you put emphasis somewhere and at the expense of somewhere else, that you could gain benefit from that, especially when one area is totally profitless by definition, and the other area has undiscovered things on display that's passing you by that are advantageous to you, and so you'd want to pay attention to those. There's all kinds of advantages to that, so don't diminish it unless you've tried it. Anyway, coffee refill, and I'll be back. N5LAX.
Oh my God, that was a lot of words. Just a lot of words, primarily. And I'll just remind you of what brought all this about, because you think it's a pointless exercise, and you may still consider it to be a pointless exercise to discuss it, especially since you won't answer simple questions with a straight answer. So I think the exercise is to wear me out so that I won't bring it up again. I think that's what the real exercise is on your part. But from the get-go, it was all about how your favorite squirrel, Fatal Attraction, stopped by the Wiener Schnitzel right there where you live in New Caney, just on the other side of the highway down the, I think it's, from what I looked up, it's been a while since I've looked into this. It's on the access road near the McDonald's, I believe, or maybe behind it or something like that. It's, like I said, it's been a little while since I've looked at it on Google Maps. But that's where it all started from, you know, and the fact that he asked me to pass on to you that he ate there and that he found it to be really delicious and he enjoyed the chili cheese dog. And then you began reprimanding me for even bringing up such a thing with you because of who it was that, you know, reached out to me to begin with. And, but I find it humorous that it caught on, and I've heard other people talk about you and their Wiener Schnitzel, and since it's been probably over a week ago since I heard that conversation, I would have expected you to have already received the gift card. And so I was just wondering if you got it in and if you went and, you know, used it. That's all. Because I found it humorous that I even heard a conversation going on. And it's rather humorous to me, given the sound a little dirty. But oh well, I will try to keep my words to a minimum and be very concise in what I'm talking about. I won't get into gene splicing or atom splitting at all. I'm just going to stay to the subject at hand. N5LAX. All right, we can do that.
Well, I guess I was talking over the top of my head. I thought that it was kind of, again, Occam's razor, the obvious. All you got to do is point it out, and certain things are obvious to the aware, and I'm actually kind of surprised that you seem like that you didn't get it. You know, you didn't get it. And also, what relevance to the actions of some nut job is if we should be interested in the activities of a mental pervert, that we would rather, it would be beneficial to us if we didn't know he existed. It's certainly not beneficial to us to dwell, except maybe on the behavior, when the behavior is happening. And so, that is profitable to us. All other avenues there's no profit in it, no interest, and the idea that you would focus or give any attention to, in particular, to the action of some perverted nut job, as if you should even display any interest. I know such a thing that showed up in my inbox, it would have gone into the trash bin to be deleted when my emailer closes out. It deletes the trash directory, and that would have been the destination of that particular thing. And I doubt I'd even mention that the thing around, unless I saw some angle to it that exposed how deranged this individual is. This profile that we've seen out there is pretty much confirmed that. Pretty much given what the individual is a mentally perverted, deranged scumbag that's been convicted of harassment and other things. These is probably not advisable in every way you could say, just not to even look there. I was talking over your head.
Well, I find it really odd. I'm must not have understood your analogy using it has to do with problem solving. And I don't see where there is a problem here, except for, even though you'll get on the frequency, and I'm going to drop it after this because this is pointless. It really is. Because you don't ever take an account for what you do on the air when it comes to recognizing squirrels. You only point out the sin of others without pulling the mote out from your own eye. You want to go around picking splinters out of other people's eyes, but you won't remove the beam from your own first. And it was just a simple question. I didn't want to get off into a big, long discussion. Not really that big of a funny. I heard that somebody, not Fatal Attraction, not anyone else, somebody else, was getting you a gift card. And you've already acknowledged that you would look forward to getting it in, that it would be something humorous to you, and that's good enough. It's good enough, okay? Without going into spending an extra 10, 15 minutes in dialogue for simple back and forth question and answers or conversation. Instead, you get up on your soapbox and you go off into a big, long dissertation of sorts. Not that you're being a college professor, but you still do it.
Hey, y'all, to the people of America,
Similar to that.
I was at this here McDonald's on Dorset. It's Monday night. I was just disrespected in there. Almost got in a fight with the gal in there. First of all, my first issue is the drive-thru was built all the way up, and I had to walk inside.
And therefore,
So then I'm already mad because I got to get out of my car and go inside. So I go inside, I politely say, hey, can I have a McRib meal? Topped with Dr. Pepper. And the lady says, okay, that'd be $6.58.
Dino,
I said, ain't you forget something?
try to behave now.
He said, what?
Well, see, that's a very libtard thing to do, to draw false equivalences. Now, that's one of the things you did just there, is you drew a false equivalences. And so you wanted to go down that road, I would ask if you understood the difference between rules and preferences.
That's mean.
Excuse me, bitch.
That's what's mean.
Punch that bitch.
I mean, okay, so once again, false equivalences, which of course is intellectually dishonest when you do that, and you shouldn't be doing it. False equivalences, or you should never do those. And the notion that there's a difference between rules and preferences. I guess you're thinking that one over. Okay, once again, the false equivalences, which of course is intellectually dishonest and unfair, you shouldn't be doing that, and the difference between rules and preferences.
No, I don't think I brought up any false equivalences, and by the way, you were stepped on the first time around, so I didn't get to hear you. Someone had a stronger signal than yours. Yeah, they did.
Okay, so have you ever been noticed to me the unidentified jammer pirate? Unidentified jammer pirate. You ever seen me do that activity? No, you haven't.
Well, yeah, I would say yes, but you will disagree with me.
No, I've never been unidentified. Never, ever. And I've always been, legitimate stations. Okay, so jammer pirate. So you're going to draw a false equivalence between what I do And the jammer pirates, which are a jammer pirate all the time. I mean, that's what they're doing there. I mean, I'm here to talk to the people that are here, our acquaintances that we've made, maybe some new people out in the future. Welcome that.
He's a narcissistic, self-centered son of a bitch, and you might as well leave the frequency and let him alone.
We know that they're bad actors. They're in here for the purposes of harassment and breaking the rules. And once again, the false equivalent that you would, as if they were interchangeable, is a dishonest, intellectually corrupt statement to make.
Look, okay, middle midget Raymond. Let me clear this up for you, since you obviously went over your head to begin with. I was not equivalent. Now, I have never known you not to identify, okay? And I wasn't even referring to any of that, but we could go there too. But what I was referring to is people like Raymond, Dino, Brad, Todd, anyone else. If anyone makes any mention of any squirrel, you jump down their throat, but then yet you'll get on frequency and you'll call for the squirrels by getting on without even being in conversation with anybody necessarily, and just say, I wonder where all the squirrels are tonight. Well, what are you doing? I mean, come on. I wasn't calling for a false equivalency. I wasn't referring to unidentified jamming at all. I wasn't even thinking about unidentified jamming when I was talking about how you are, calling for those who you criticize to behave when you yourself are guilty of the same sin. And now I think you might be caught up to speed on what I was referring to. I wasn't referring to jamming while unidentified. Raymond's an enabler.
Okay, so in other words, your brain is full of mush in that. Okay. First of all, I've tried to explain this to Brad many times. For example, a universal rule. It's like a rule of physics. Even a mother bird, a sparrow, understands this rule. It's a universal rule around the whole planet. Basically, part of our physical framework. Weakness is provocative. It always is. A weakness in countries, weakness in individuals. Is to add to the predators. Weakness is always provocative. The cheetah will go after the slow gazelle, and the mother bird will do the broken wing routine, and countries will be belligerent toward those that they think are weak or showing weakness. It's a universal rule that everybody is supposed to know. Which, of course, if you're aware of that, then that should explain a good portion of what you just went on about. And I would get on to Brad. Brad, don't do the wounded bird because weakness is provocative. Certain things are enticements, and weakness always is. So never, ever show that. Show the opposite. And I shouldn't be having to explain this to you.
Well, likewise, I think your brain is full of mush, and I shouldn't be having to explain this to you either, what I just explained to you, that you don't seem to want to understand, nor do you care. That when you get on the frequency and there is no one on talking to you, you just keep on going on and on and on in a one-way conversation talking about the squirrels, where are the squirrels tonight? And I know, I've heard you do it many a times, even though I never did chance to talk to you. I was too busy laughing. But yet you get on to people whenever they make a comment, like telling a squirrel to shut up, and then you jump all over their case. But maybe earlier that evening you were on the air wondering where all your squirrels went off to. Where are they at tonight? Oh, it's going to be a slow night. Oh, it's going to be boring tonight. I don't have any squirrels to have fun with. And you don't seem to see a problem with that. But yet I've heard you jump on people's cases many a time when they actually interact with the squirrel by maybe telling them to shut up. So anyway, Raymond, it's all good. It's all good. Whatever, I find it do find it mind-numbing that you can still try to justify your actions while telling other people who take note of things, such as your behavior on the air, and your answer to that is to tell them that their brain is full of mush. Okay, N5, you like.
Well, again, you just played a brain full of mush. As I said, weakness is provocative. Weakness is provocative. You heard me say that 1,000 times. Weakness is provocative. And that it's always been. It's a universal rule. It's written in the law of physics. It's a true thing. It's an objective truth that is universal. It's 100% reliable every time. Weakness is provocative. I answered your question, but yet you can't connect the two at all. You can't do it.
Hey, let me get in here, man. W5FAX, you guys have been fighting the same damn stuff now for a couple of months. John, you've been doing it. Raymond's been doing it. Why don't you pick another subject and drop the whole thing?
I've explained 1,000 times. Weakness provocative. It's a universal rule. Everybody understands the truth of it universally. So why can't the rule be applied for understanding? And why can't you put together that the reason I don't act wounded about the squirrels, as a matter of fact, I act like I'm ready for them, is I don't show weakness. Because weakness is provocative. Yeah, I understand certain things about human nature and rules of the universe that are universal. And weakness is always provocative. So I don't show any. I show the opposite. I mean, why do I have to explain this? This is stuff you're supposed to know already.
Oh, God. Let me see if I can stop smiling. Mark, was that you that I just heard in there?
I got something to say. W5FAX, once you guys drop the subject, you thought about this about 10 or 12 and forth and back and forth. Why don't you do it on the telephone?
I mean, how many times should I do to have to explain to you? You know that it's universally true. It's absolutely true. It's a physics, like written into physical law of the... Everybody knows it. And when you...
You know, as it was just pointed out, when you talk in circles, I'm not even sure what you're referring to anymore, so I'm not even going to broach the subject right now because I'm not sure to which point you're trying to make. Mark, I know you don't like me getting into it with Raymond, and I've heard you say that before. And I hate to be so disrespectful towards you, but I don't really care. You know, you got a power switch on that radio and you got a VFO, Mark. You can always go somewhere else. And, I'm not always in here. And Raymond was the one who ramped this up. I asked him a question. I mentioned something, and he went off into these very long diatribes, mentioning several subject matters. And what I believe incorrectly using a theorem to make a point about a problem that doesn't really exist, but still, if any problem does exist, he's probably created it himself, which he doesn't agree with me on that, and that's fine. And if you guys haven't noticed, I'm not worked up about this. It's really not that big a deal, and I'm trying to de-escalate it, but it keeps getting even more escalated as I keep trying to de-escalate it. So, Mark, whatever you have to say, I don't care. I really don't. I can barely hear you, and your opinion doesn't matter to me. Have you not figured that out yet?
I don't give a damn, John. But you two guys do this all the time. You get in here when you get in here, and you guys go off on the tangent. I really don't care, John. I got a VFO, but I don't like listening to you two guys on the radio when you can do it on the telephone. W5FX.
It's interesting that logic seems to be lost on you. I mean, you make a proposal as if the banks, when a bank gets robbed, it's their fault because they had money in there to be stolen, or the women deserve to be raped because he dressed provocatively. Never the person doing the transgression, but the enticement. You see, she was her skirt was too short, or they had too much money in there. Okay. logical flaws. You understand that the logic rules out certain things? If you're going to be intellectually honest and be disciplined and be fair and be an honest broker about the exchange of ideas, that those violations of logic are off base. You understand that bit?
Violations of logic and violations of facts. You have to have logic and facts together or it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand its application to what we were just discussing. There again, it sounds like we're going off in another direction. Well, that's what Raymond does. Raymond goes off on tangents. Don't you know Raymond by now? Yeah, well, I do know that. That's true. That's Raymond. That's his personality. You can't take it, spin the dial.
Well, I go off on tangents because I set facts on the table. The facts are the guardrails of reality. If you're outside the realm of established fact, you have left the universe that we're living in, and you're talking nonsense. You have to be within the ring circumscribed by the established facts, or else we're not having a discussion. You're off in a fantasy world. So I always put facts on the table. Not all of them can see how they related. I could explain all of them. Again, weakness provocative. Now, everybody understands the universal rule, but evidently you don't understand its importance or how it may apply. Now, the word obtuse would come into mind because I'm actually perplexed that you can't see the connection. I think it's obvious to me, but and especially since the rule and behavior is so universal. And everybody understands this rule, and the rule has logical implications, does it not? N5LAX.
Raymond, you can't make a statement saying that everybody understands something. That is an incorrect statement. You might could say almost everybody, but you can't say everybody. I'm just trying to correct your language that you're using. I understand what you're saying, but if you want to say factual, you need to speak factual and not use words like everybody and always and words like that in your communication over.
Well, everybody understands that weakness is provocative. They understand how universal that is. It has an application that is 100% reliable in every case at all times. It's a universal rule of the universe we live in. It's always been the mother bird I gave all the examples that show the truth of what I've said. And it should be obvious that, I would counsel Brad when he would show such and such that says, look, that's when you telegraph that, you're giving reports of success. It's a battle damage assessment that says the squirrels are getting to you, they're bothering you, and that is enticement for them to redouble their efforts. And so you think that you're getting one result, actually you're getting the other because you don't understand the basic rules of the universe we live in. Weakness is always provocative. Always. So it's not the only behavior that elicits.
The word everybody.
You'd also, you would appear as a challenge. Now, a challenge is enticing. But the weakness is always provocative. Predators, aggressors, and so on. Now, it has no application to the kind and gentle people of the earth, but that's not who we're talking about.
Would not use the word everybody because everybody doesn't understand everything that you talk about because, like I say, some people are mentally retarded and they're part of the everybody you're talking about, and you're not going to win this argument. You can't use everybody and everything you use it in court, and they'll beat you to death over it.
That's what I last mentioned before you went off on this whole new diatribe.
Well, isn't that obvious to normal human beings? Now, it might be not obvious to somebody that's dumbass enough to be a squirrel. It might not be obvious to those because they're a member of that very exclusive club that exhibit this behavior, which is, by the way, you'll notice normal people don't do. Do I have to point that out? When a member of a very exclusive club out far out on the bell curve, which tells you the truth about the people we're talking about. There's a scum. They're below the scum at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, they're down there with the population sizes down to 10 and 20 or so. I mean, so that's how far down they are, down to where they're members of that very exclusive club. The most perverted, screwed up people that could be found anywhere. Because anybody else more advanced than them wouldn't engage in the behavior. They would embarrass them. They wouldn't think of it. And they don't do it. But these group of 12 or so will, which tells you what kind of creatures they are. Well, that should be informative to you, one would think. And so, yeah, they're not going to pick up on that. They're too simpleton. They're too stupid. Sociopath and all the other maladies they're afflicted with. And so on. Sun Tzu, all the war. I should be able to just say the title of the work should be enough to convey all the ramifications behind it and what I'm about, just by mentioning the title of that work. Very old, Sun Tzu, Art of War. You may even heard me use the phrase, as an inference, as a hint, and you would think that it would be understood, given that it's generally known what that's about. But maybe, for example, even there I assume too much. Hello, Freddie. By the way, hello, Freddie. Freddie, I am kind of perplexed because I talk about these things that in my thinking, should be obvious to people, and that it turned out to be not to be so, which should look so, if I have any annoyance, it's the idea that I have to go to take to such depth of discussion, or why I would have to explain one of my disciplines. I've gone into explanation about that, for example, with bread. They've heard me talk about that. Hours on end, all added up together, maybe not as much in one sitting, but as a reminder and a short refresher about how important that is. And so don't be such a gullible schmuck, in other words. And so, did I have to explain these things, which seem to be simpleton subjects, is actually quite a surprise to me. I'm going to get me a refill. I'll be back. N5LAX.